Into the Fog is a year-round podcast dedicated to covering Halloween Horror Nights Orlando.
From speculation season and announcements to opening night and the final screams of the event, we break down everything HHN.
Follow along for weekly discussions, rumors, news, and all things Halloween Horror Nights. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Into the Fog, an HHN podcast. I'm your host, Woody, and with me, as always, my co-host, Dustin.
What's going on, everybody? You can catch us at our socials at Into the Fog Pod on both IG and TikTok, and Into the Fog HHN on X and YouTube.
All right, y'all. First thing this episode, we're going to talk about the most recent announcement, Sinners. D, why don't you give us that house description?
It states, take a bite out of the award-winning original film. In the 1930s Mississippi, libations flow freely and guitar strings fill the air in the Smokestack Twins juke joint. But the blues become red when Renwick's troops of bloodthirsty vampires crash the party and test blood's true bonds as you brave this terrifying haunted house based on the award-winning original film, Sinners.
All right, y'all. So we believe that this is going to be intent number 4. Codename was Trader. So did you watch that video, D, of the announcement?
I did. Thought it was probably one of the most anticipated houses based off of original films. And I think just from the very beginning of the release trailer announcement that everyone immediately knew what it was going to be.
Yeah, especially whenever you had like that southern voice coming in and the 3 cards were all on the table and they were flipping because, you know, there's gambling all in the juke joint.
Absolutely.
And so did you look at the key art?
A little bit.
That
Didn't
key art
really
was dope.
didn't really have too many thoughts on it. It did look good, but to me, most of HHN's art and release typically are up to par.
Yeah, of course. But that key art, man, I wish it would have been on the shirt. Other than, I mean, the shirt, the merchandise was all great. The shirt was cool, but if they would have put that key art on the shirt, I definitely would have been first in line to buy that thing.
I'm wondering if the key art is going to be kind of how last year you had the different house. What's it called? The spindle or the glass art.
Yeah, they got the carousel already, but for the carousel piece was a picture. I think it was a stack, and you put him onto your carousel.
There might be a t-shirt, shirts, or apparel that come out with the key art.
Yeah, I hope so, because I'm definitely going to get it if it's that key art.
What are some of your predictions that you're wanting to see at the house?
All right, so in the house, I really want to see where Sammy sings "The Magic We Do," and that's the one that's like
kind of like the intro music to the actual song, the most famous song in the actual movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know that's the part where he's sitting there playing. You got all the different cultures and spirits and
Right.
different musicians from different eras all inside the juke joint at the same time, and it's burning down. It's like where he like, you know how it says where if a musician's so powerful they can pierce the veil.
I honestly think that song and that scene's probably the climax of the movie, because that's where we get the transition from building up to where the vampires obviously get let in.
They show up because he heard him singing.
Yeah,
I think he pierced the veil or whatever.
Right. Shout out to Pierce the Veil. But yeah, I think that was the true turning point of the actual movie. So that song is probably the most famous song in that movie.
Yeah, I hope that's in the house at least. Like, I don't really know how they're gonna be able to do it with like all the different, like there's gonna be so many different actors in one spot. So I doubt they might do a small snippet of it and just have like a few different like cultures and eras of music.
I could see that being the intro music as you're walking. You know, there's always that dead space going into the house. So
yeah. Well, speaking of like that, walking into the house, I want the facade to be either the actual juke joint, like we're walking through the front door, and like we're walking in, you know, you got the big fields and all around it, and like just walk in, you see the stage, the bar, the different like the poker tables and stuff like that, the dance floor, and have little Sammy up there just playing away, or a scare actor playing, like acting like they're playing the guitar, and just have that background sound of like one of the main songs from it's The Magic We Do.
Yeah, I would assume the house is probably going to need to flow like the movie did too. that being a starting point is probably a good idea.
Yeah, or like you said, if it flows like the movie, like just starting in like the church, you know how he walks in with like his broken guitar, and like if we were to walk in and have like cotton fields on both sides, and then we walk into the front door as if we were Sammy, and then you have your pews, and they could also do like a jump scare out there where they have like all mannequins in the pews, like in Blood Moon, and one like you don't know which one's real. That would be a good scare, like right off the rip. And then like we come out the backside of the church and go like we're going around to the juke joint. That would be a dope entrance also.
It's a good shout, the Blood Moon, but I think Blood Moon set the standards for anything going forward house-wise that involves church views. That's got to be mandatory. I mean, you saw it in Blood Moon, and then we got to see it when CDS came to town. So
yeah, especially if that's the facade we enter into. If we're entering into the church, like I could see them doing that scare again. But another thing that I would want to see in the house is that towards the end of the film where Remic's in the water and Sammy's sitting there quoting the Lord's Prayer, and then Remick is sitting there repeating it also to him, and his guitar floats up to him and he smacks him in the head, and he's got that big disc sticking out of the side of his head. Right. That I think that would be like a good scare actor design for Remick at some point throughout the house.
Wouldn't be bad.
Yeah. But what about you, D? What's some of your wants and predictions that you think you might see in the house?
So I think any fan of the actual movie, I think you hit the nail on the head. One of the main things that anybody would want, and especially what I would want, is the staple music that's used in the movie. So Sammy song, some of the other different, some of the other different shouts, like the gentleman, the drunk that they picked up from the train station. He's got a good song in the movie, kind of towards the end before everything kind of gets real with the vampires.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I want more lore behind the actual movie, because just to your average movie watcher, it just looks like a typical vampire movie, but more of the true meaning about what the producer behind Sinners was trying to get across. So to me and to most people that are horror junkies, it's more immortality in Sinners portrayed as spiritual imprisonment, not necessarily freedom, and way deeper than vampires just attack a juke joint. The movie is basically a layered myth about Black music, culture, exploitation, religion, ancestry, and then back in that time era, racism and immortality wrapped into Southern Gothic horror. So I think it's just Sinners is more of a niche in the horror sphere. So I hope they kind of replicate that in the house and don't kind of overload it with just jump scares. I mean, you gotta actually get you gotta have jump scares, but you want to also tell the story in your own HHN way on why this movie is so highly touted and highly wanted to be a house.
Well, I think they're gonna do a great job, because I mean, Michael Aiello, he's like the main dude of HHN. He tweeted out when this was announced that from the moment that he saw Sinners, he knew it was going to be a HHN house. So he's already had it in his mind that he wanted to make this a house, and they're going to do it justice. So
yeah, I just want it to be nostalgic, and honestly, I'm going to be real upset if we don't get a chance to ask for permission to enter the house, because
that would because you have to have permission. The vampires have to have permission. So
yeah, let us in.
It would be great. They might do that on like premium screen, but like just your average night, they probably won't be able to, just with how much the crowds are going to be there. Yeah, but that would be like a good touch.
And if it's not the end of the house, there's got to be a certain point, because there's obviously going to be different stages in the house where that's got to be incorporated somehow. Because that was probably the most driven quote by most actors that became vampires were, "Why don't you go in and let me in?"
You have to be invited in.
Exactly.
They can't just walk in.
Correct.
Yeah.
So overall, I think it's no secret that both of us are pretty hyped about this house specifically. So
yeah,
this might be a stage screen first house waiting in line.
Yeah, it might be, depending. It might on what Jack and Oddfellow looks like. It might be the first house we do this year. For sure.
I could see something like Sinners getting FNAF type traffic when it comes to standing in lines.
Yeah, for sure. But all right, so that was the most recent announcement. So now we're going to dive back into and give y'all a little lore on Jack and Oddfellow. So Jack and Oddfellow Chaos and Control. It was announced on March 21st at the panel at MegaCon, but the background for the house is witness Jack the Clown's unholy origins and enter Dr. Oddfellow's wicked and twisted universe, where the two most powerful forces in horror face off in a death match of chaos versus control. The confirmed location, this is the only house that has a confirmed location, and that would be Soundstage 22, and the code name was Balloon. But this house was announced, like I said, at the MegaCon panel on March 21st. The panel revealed that Jack and Oddfellow would finally face off in a brutal death match. However, as the battle unfolds, both of the characters realize that they are evenly matched. Neither one can truly win nor lose. Mike Aiello described this best during the panel. He said that Jack and Oddfellow are two sides of the same coin, but instead of the coin landing on a clear victor, it lands standing upright, symbolizing that one cannot exist without the other. Once they come to this realization, the two decide that fighting each other is pointless. Instead, they unite and combine their chaos and cruelty with one shared goal: to rule together and turn their attention towards us, the HHN fans. Together, they unleash torture, madness, and complete chaos on everyone who is unlucky to cross their paths. Now, let's give you some background on Jack the Clown and Dr. Oddfellow and what we think will be in the house.
So, according to HHN Wiki, Jack the Clown, better known as Jack Schmidt, was born alongside his brother Eddie at Shady Brook Rest Home and Sanitarium in the late 1800s. Raised in an abusive and poverty-stricken household, Jack eventually ran away, leaving Eddie behind to join the circus. There, he found his true calling as a clown performer in Dr. Oddfellow's Carnival of Thrills. Jack loved entertaining children, and audiences were quickly drawn to his chaotic energy and twisted humor. But behind the painted smile hid something far darker. Unknown to the public, Jack was a murderer who used his clown persona to lure children away from the crowds. As children began disappearing across the country, the FBI noticed a horrifying pattern. Every abduction lined up perfectly with the carnival's route. Authorities closed in on the so-called killer clown, and in desperation, Jack confessed everything to Dr. Oddfellow. Oddfellow, however, had secrets of his own. Years earlier, several audience members had supposedly died in a tragic carnival accident, but the truth was far more sinister. The deaths had actually been ritual sacrifices to the Zodiac in exchange for mystical power and eternal life. Knowing the police investigation could expose his dark past, Oddfellow demanded Jack show him where the bodies were hidden. Jack then revealed 3 small trunks containing the remains of 13 missing children. Horrified and fearing exposure, Dr. Oddfellow then decided Jack had become a liability. He murdered the clown himself, but not before Jack violently fought back, slashing deep wounds across Oddfellow's face. As Jack died, Oddfellow's blood spilled onto the corpse, and to cover everything up, Oddfellow placed the children's bodies inside the Carnival House of Horrors attraction as grotesque exhibits. And in a final act of irony, he transformed Jack's body into a massive Jack-in-the-Box prop and sealed it away into the dark ride.
Years later, the carnival was dismantled and sold off piece by piece. The abandoned House of Horrors sat rotting in isolation for nearly 60 years. What Oddfellow never realized was that his blood, tainted by the Zodiac's supernatural powers, had seeped onto Jack's corpse, turning the box Jack was sealed into an interdimensional gateway to the Oddverse. Decades later, the news crew from ABC TV, filming a special on the abandoned dark rides of America, discovered the forgotten attraction in a junkyard. Intrigued, the crew ventured inside with cameras and flashlights rolling. Deep within the ride, they uncovered 3 wooden trunks, and behind them sat a large box marked with the letters J-A-C-K. As they approached, their equipment began malfunctioning. Flashlights dimmed, cameras batteries drained. One crew member noticed the crank attached to the side of the box and cautiously turned it. At first, nothing happened. Then the crank began to turn on its own. Suddenly, the box exploded open. A foul stench filled the air, and a mangled corpse of Jack the Clown emerged. His body twisted and tangled it within rusted springs. Authorities were immediately called to the scene. During the investigation, police connected the attraction back to Dr. Oddfellow and confirmed that the 3 trunks contained the remains of the 13 missing children. And the large box, It held the remains of Jack Schmidt himself. The bodies of the children were transported in 2 separate vans, while a third van carried Jack's remains, still intertwined in his springs, to the coroner's office. The first 2 vans arrived safely. The third never did. Just after midnight, the driver radioed in reporting mechanical trouble deep within the swamps of Louisiana. Then communications stopped. The van and the driver disappeared without a trace. And over 1 week later, the entire ABBC TV film crew was found dead. Since then, legends have spread that Jack the Clown is no longer dead, now reborn through the blood of Oddfellow and powered by the Zodiac. Jack wanders in search of his former employer, seeking revenge against him. And anyone foolish enough to set him free from his box is rewarded with one thing: death. So, D, does this get you a little bit more hyped for the house, knowing some lore of Jack the Clown and Oddfellow?
Absolutely. I mean, before some of the background was released, I couldn't have told you either way who Jack or Oddfellow was, just being a new HHN fan and just saw it recently go in the past 3 years. This definitely puts it into a more intriguing perspective that how connected these two are. So it only gets me more excited to go see this house in person and kind of experience the lore, like you said, and kind of catch up on the history a little bit.
I hope we, like, during the house, because, you know, it's supposed to start with Oddfellow telling the story of how him and Jack met. So basically, it's going to be Oddfellow's perspective of this story, and then about halfway through the house, Jack takes over, and it's his perspective of the same story. And I hope that like we actually get to see like Jack the Clown as the Jack in the Box, like as one of the scenes, or because, you know, in the second concept art, that's when Jack takes over and he's hosting the show Jacked Up, and it's got Oddfellow as a Jack in the Box. He's on the springs then.
Yeah,
so that's
me not knowing how they create these houses and the process behind that. I mean, at first glance, I could see them following this lore to a T as far as timelines goes, and they both are carrying out the history of their relationship, and then the house ends with him in the box.
Oddfellow, he has all his own like stuff with the Zodiac, where we touched a little bit of it, where he had his carnival accident, but they were really just sacrifices to the Zodiac so he can have eternal life. And where it said he was scratched on the face, like in 32, Oddfellow was walking around like that was his year, and each Oddfellow had the scratches on his face from Jack the Clown. So they even had that little touch of each Oddfellow that, like, whether it was in the scare zones, in his house, up there at the front of the park, they all had the scars. That's how you could tell which person in the scare zones was off.
And to me, if done correctly, I could see this house probably being the longest duration from start to finish. I mean,
because they're going to want to touch everything.
Well, this has the most potential to tell a story. They could use the house to teach the lore, per se.
Yeah, it's going to be like, for the average person that doesn't know anything about it, they'll just like, oh, it's a cool house. But for like the fiends or like the HHN, like the
fanatics, they'll get a nice little touch.
Yeah, there'll be so much lore throughout the house, and like all the different things that they're going to touch inside the house. Like we get to see the Oddverse. That was kind of retconned in, because like before this house announcement, that was the part where Jack the Clown's box was an interdimensional portal, was not in the lore until recently when they announced this house.
Yeah, this kind of dynamic, or the comment about one can't survive without the other, I mean, this kind of gives me shades of kind of like a horror at odds that we used to get from Freddy versus Jason. Like, both of them can exist in their own right, but you can't have one without the other at the same time. Like they're kind of intertwined in the horror verse.
Yeah, but both of them never realized that
they can have their own stories. Yeah, that's where that differs from Jack versus Oddfellow. They both can have their own stories, but when it came time to tell the story of Freddy versus Jason, they definitely couldn't survive without intertwining. But like you said, neither one of them realized that in the time that we got to watch that movie. But
yeah, like them realizing that there's no point in fighting each other anymore in the house. And then they're going to unite and just inflict all the chaos and stuff on us is going to be a cool thing, like a cool transition. Because, it's probably going to be like when you first walk in, it's going to be odd because it's going to be Oddfellow telling his story or telling the story of Jack the Clown. And then Jack's going to take over and it's going to be like, no, it's my turn. And that's when Jack starts controlling the Oddverse and they're fighting. And then the third, like the scene or the third concept art was when they realized that both of them can't exist without each other and that there's not going to be a clear winner of them standing on top of the Cane of Souls or the Green Skull.
Yeah.
Whenever they do that, I think both of them are going to be like narrating, sort of say.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be down for that. And that kind of brings up a point for me, like of like a wish list for future years. And it probably would never happen, but kind of the part where you stated that Jack and Oddfellow is going to team up and just wreak havoc on all the HHN part rulers at some point in the house. Kind of the same sentiment, but take the Mount Rushmore of horror movies. So your Michael Myers, your Jasons, your Freddys, your insert a fourth, and create one big super house. And like the sole purpose is just to wreak havoc on all of the part rulers. But something like that probably is not obtainable. But like as a horror fan,
they've done it before, but it's not. It's probably unattainable now because of how many different rights to characters you would have to get and how much money that would cost just for like a single property.
Yeah, that's just a horror wish in me. But well, that's going to wrap up episode 3 of Into the Fog. If you enjoyed the episode, leave a like, comment your thoughts, and if you're hyped for the first 2 announcements, give us some ideas for future episodes. If you're not already subscribed, smash the button, turn the notifications on so you're notified when we drop episodes, and tell a friend about us. We've only scratched the surface of HHN 35 season. Wood, go ahead and take us out.
All right, y'all. You can reach us at our socials at Into the Fog Pod on IG and TikTok and Into the Fog HHN on X and YouTube. We appreciate y'all. See you.
Bye.